This is your CEO assessment tip. Today we're talking about unaccredited degrees. There's nothing worse than hiring a CEO who has falsified his or her credentials or has fraudulently represented their qualifications. Using the few questions I'm going to show you now, you can ensure that never again will a candidate pass you by with a fake degree or claiming that they have a university degree when in fact they do not. Here's a few simple questions that you will use to catch them every single time. So the candidate says, yes, I went to Harvard University and I studied business. Great. What was your favorite class? What did you learn in that class? And can you give me an example of how you applied that concept in your day-to-day work? Very easy question. So somebody who has gone to that school will say, yeah, my favorite class was strategy, and actually I used the value chain analysis, which is the same strategy that IKEA uses, and I actually use it all the time. It's amazing. Do you want me to tell you more about it? No, let's just keep talking about your university degree. Who was your favorite professor is the next question I would ask. So they should be able to describe their favorite professor. There should be some emotionality and some detail there. So they would say, oh yes, it's the same as my favorite class. Professor Herman taught strategy. He was such a quirky guy. He always had a bow tie on, but man, his insights were amazing. You couldn't catch him without a cup of coffee in his hand, however. So that kind of detail, that kind of emotionality, that's kind of what we're looking for. Then I would get into a series of questions about the campus life. So I would then ask them, what was campus life like? Did you stay on campus? Did you live off campus? Where did you stay? Where did you study? Are you one of those people who needs absolute silence to study, or are you one of those people who prefers the action and you studied in a cafe? Where were your go-to spots on campus? What were they like? What was the town like that the university was near? What were the people like? Was there a culture clash? I know as a Canadian, one of the first times I went to the US and I went into a McDonald's and customers had guns on their hips, it was a massive culture clash for me actually. So going into new towns, what was that culture clash like? What was living in that town like? And these are some very simple questions. So you're asking, what was your favorite class? Who was your favorite professor? Where did you stay? Where did you eat? What was the town like? What was the culture of the people like? Were they friendly? Were they not friendly? And you just see what is the level of emotionality and detail as you walk through this. If you have a candidate who says, I am a doctorate, I am a PhD, I have a PhD in business and philosophy and whatever it is that they have the PhD in, great. Always ask them, what was your thesis? And the thesis is a hypothesis that is then supported by research and data. It is not a report. So if somebody says, for example, if one of the candidates I said, okay, he says, oh yeah, I got a PhD from XYZ school. Great, what was your thesis? Then he says, oh, my thesis was on international law. Well, that's not a thesis, that's a topic. So then I would say, well, that's not your thesis. What was your thesis? It was on international law, but what was your thesis? Oh, I did a report on how all of a sudden there's a red flag on the plate. They really should have a clear hypothesis that's stated and then either proved or disproved by a series of data points and evidence that's supported in the body of the paper. So catching somebody who is claiming to have a PhD when they don't is actually very easy. So what you want to do is, again, ask them for their thesis and then look at the level of detail and excitement. So somebody who spends 4 or 5 years writing a paper or doing a series of research on a particular topic, they should be passionate about it. They should light up, and you should actually have to pull them back. You should be saying, okay, to someone who's really done a PhD thesis, you will have to say, okay, that's enough about microbiological proteins and the interaction that they have with our neurons. I don't need to hear more about it. I understand you did the thesis. But for somebody who is faking, they'll then start to claim that, hey, there's this report, and they'll start walking through. It will be really dry, and it will be really flat. It will lack passion, it will lack emotionality, and there'll be a big red flag on the plate. So those are a few questions that when asked, you will never have another candidate get by your talent acquisition team saying that they have a university degree when in fact they actually don't. The only reason a candidate can get by with a fake degree is because the basic simple questions are not being asked. And when they are asked, they're stopped dead in their tracks. Those are a few questions you can use to catch a CEO off balance. If you like those, you could pick up our book, CEO Assessment and Selection, which has over 400 questions that you can use in your CEO interviews. Also, on our book page, you can download a free sample of the book, and you can get a link to our book page in the description of this video.